today in the next, this talk and the next talk, I want to cover a few things about this book, which is in your hand anyway already. I do hope some of you would have, out of curiosity or interest, would have at least read a few pages. And in fact, I asked you to read at least the introduction and the foreword. The foreword is by Panduranghi and by M.D. Srinivas. Professor M.D. Srinivas, of course, said a few things about it in his talk, but he has more things to say about the pre-siddhāntic or the more ancient astronomy. As a historian, he has written that. Now, all these 4 days you have heard me, 3 days, this is the 4th day, and we have always been talking about the Vedic connections, So I introduced the astronomical features in the Vedas because to understand what is Vedāṅga. And before Common Era, what astronomy was there could be called the Vedic astronomy or even Vedāṅga astronomy, because there was no other astronomical intrusion into India at that time. So this can all be called, which is derived from the Vedic tradition. The meaning is that. But to show the connection between the Vedas and the later texts is not easy, particularly because many people think it is Lagadha's Jyotiṣa is the only Vedāṅga, and people keep on asking what is the connection between that and Rig Veda, because Archa Jyotiṣa it says, what is the connection? And there is a Yajusha Jyotiṣa, what is its connection to Yajurveda? This is something very, what shall I say, not intellectual. What has happened is traditional and forgetting things. That is Vismriti, not Smriti, but Vismriti. Now, if you read how this Lagadha's Jyotiṣa was retrieved, both Tilak and somewhere I think even Dikshit mentions that they heard something which was being as ślokas uttered by some Chitpavan Brahmanas or whoever during a function before they took the food. I'm sure all of you know, before the Samaradhanas or whatever, you tell some ślokas or ask somebody to tell ślokas and all that. So traditionally it seems they were uttering these few ślokas, because there is only about 30 in the 20 in the first one, another 30 in the second one. So something they were mentioning, and then they later on found out it has astronomical information in it. And the people who were uttering these shlokas had already forgotten what it means. They simply thought it is something like Sahasranama or Ashtautara they were telling. But the people who heard, some of the astronomers and other pundits who knew about it, they retrieved it. So they wanted to write it down and know what it is and all that. But there are 2 manuscripts are available in Nepal. Actually, Kaundinyayana in his edition, he has put up those manuscripts also. And the remaining manuscripts, in fact, you can see in Kuparna Shastri's edition of the Insa. There also he cannot say what is the connection between this and the Vedas if you read their introduction. Only thing that is available is a tradition, and there is a 5-year yuga which is mentioned, and it is the Śraviṣṭhā which is mentioned there. And based on it, they tried to date and got the date of about 1300 to 1400. Now, the objections to that it is not really belonging to Vedas or Vedāṅga, or it is not so old, has been raised by Pingree and others, to which MDS was also mentioning. The main reason, there are 2. One is which is Śraviṣṭhā. Can you identify Śraviṣṭhā in the sky? Was the question. Nobody has answered that satisfactorily in the more ancient period. Now some people are putting forth and all that. So Pingree, was one of the question was, the Śraviṣṭhā, Dhanishta, Shravana, they are all together. They have more or less the same meaning. They might have mistaken Dhanishta for Śraviṣṭhā or Shravana for Śraviṣṭhā. Again, the reason is, in the Mahabharata, there is a shloka which comes after the Abhijit Spardhamanatu, Rohiṇī kaniyasi, Jeshtatum aptum tapastaptum vanangata, it comes. That means Abhijit, she competed with her elder sister, Rohiṇī. So she wanted to become elder. That is, Jeshta is Rohiṇī actually. And hence, she went to forest to do the tapas. Actually, it says she fell down. She went to the forest to do the tapas. At that time, Dhanishta, Śraviṣṭhādis tatā kālaha brahmana parinirmitam is what comes the next shloka. But in some of the editions, it is Dhanishṭhādis tatā kālaha it comes. In another edition, Shravanādis tatā kālaha it comes. So there is a patantara. It is available in the Bori critical edition, you can see that. And that is also later combined with the Trishanku episode, where Vishwamitra wanted to send Trishanku to the sky and another formation happened and all that. So those interesting stories are all there together. And in that connection, people have pointed out, the Western Indologists particularly, even in Mahabharata, if you say that Śraviṣṭhādi is there, it can be even Dhanishta, it can be Shravana. How do you say that? Because there are patantaras. Which pata you say is the correct one? And the identification of Śraviṣṭhā with Dhanishta has been done only as a paryayapada, as yesterday also I was mentioning about it. And Dhanishta identification, in fact, many of these people have taken it as Delphini, alpha, beta Delphini or alpha Delphini. I showed that asterism also. So the Delphinius asterism, the modern one, you can see clearly. And that was fixed up. Kupana Shastri and others who wanted to date it, they took it as Delphini. If you see the INSA book, you would see that. And their reason for selecting that, or the evidence for taking that, purely Surya Siddhanta. Surya Siddhanta gives the longitudes of the 28 stars, not 27. And the available Surya Siddhanta is a Shravana, the Ashwinyadi system. The first star in the Surya Siddhanta is Ashwini, not Kritika, not Shravana, not Śraviṣṭhā, whatever it is. And it gives 28, and Abhijit is included in that. So it would seem that there was an older thing that has been edited and a new Surya Siddhanta somewhere around 10th century is what we are having today. The older Surya Siddhanta is not available. And in that, the longitude of Śraviṣṭhā is given. He calls it Śraviṣṭhā. Some editions may change it to Dhanishta, but he gives us Śraviṣṭhā. And that matches with Delphini. If you take that longitude, it matches with the modern Delphini. What is there? The longitude, not the visibility or whatever. And hence people took, that can be taken as the value, and then they have proceeded to dating. There is nothing wrong in that. There will be no errors, because the longitude is correct. Because longitude, as you see, is only the position along the ecliptic. Whether it is visible or not at a particular place depends on other conditions. The latitude, whether it was, what was its critical altitude, on the winter solstice day, was that the first nakṣatra which rose up? These questions come up. Iyengar has analyzed this first initially. We have done that further in our publication in dating the VGJ, which I yesterday briefly showed. So if you want to know this controversy between Dhanishta and Śraviṣṭhā, you have to go through that systematically and read it. And it can be shown that Śraviṣṭhā is only Aquarius, or what we call beta Aquarii, epsilon Aquarii, and alpha Aquarii. Because of precision from about 2000 years, their relative positions have also changed. The asterism shapes have also changed. Like the Shishumara changed its shape. Because of the shape changing means as we see from Earth. And in the Dhruva, in my paper I have written, originally it was called Shishumara. Later on some people called it Nahusha. Some people called it Ajagara. Some people called it, there is one more name which comes, Sarpa. And the Chinese called it dragon and with other names, which are also kind of this only, because the shape is changing. Yeah, in the Vishnu Sahasranama Bhashya, on Shankara, there is a vritti by one of his Shishyas. He says, Sarata Godakritihi. Shishumara looks like a Sarata Godakriti. How can it happen? It has totally changed the shape. Whereas Shankara says Shishumara only, and he says Dhruva to situate it, he says Sarata Godakritihi Akarha Jalajantu Visheshaha Tasya Puche Dhruvaha Stitaha iti. So that is a vritti on his Acharya. It is not a original commentary on that. So he is trying to explain it. And he was in the 16th or 17th century. So by that time, the shape had changed so much, you know. So you have to read these things astronomically, you get a feeling. Why? I'm telling all this because for the Archa Jyotiṣa and Lagadha's thing, to link it with Vedas is very difficult. And one more reason, there is a last shloka in the Yajusha Jyotiṣa where it says, Brahaspati Meenagato or some such shloka is there, I don't remember now. That means if the Brahaspati, that is Guru, Jupiter is in Meena, some condition he gives. Now the name Meena may be Sanskrit, but was the Meena Rashi available? And in fact, Kupana Shastra and others, they take it as interpolation. It was interpolated later on, but somebody had added it. This is very common. As I said, for their own personal notes, somebody may write it and keep it there, you know. Later on, we think that is the original. So that could have happened. But Pingree and others pointed out, look, this can only belong to about 500 BC, not earlier than that. And hence, all the difficulties and the controversies with that. So he would say even the concept of Tithi is not Indian. Pingree's argument is Tithi is not Indian. It has come from the Babylonians to India. Now, it's a very big issue. Neugebauer writes the Babylonian clay tablets and others they have studied, and he writes that these numbers cannot be understood without the concept of Tithi, puts within quotes, which is a Sanskrit word, he says. If you can read his book, that can be downloaded also. He doesn't want to say it has come from India or whatever. He doesn't want to say that. Now, this has been picked up by Pingree and others who are their Shishyas. He says, look, the concept of Tithi is not there in the Veda. The word is not there in the Vedas. And in Lagadha uses the word Tithi, it can only have come from outside. The argument is that. Or show in the Vedas where the word Tithi is used. There is one case which I have put up in my book. Only in the Shatabata Brahmana, in that Matsyavatara which comes, that is Manu's flood, there is a yathitam tathitam, it comes. I have given the quotation, you can read that yourself. The word Tithi is there. But Eggeling, who translated Shatabata Brahmana into English, that is the standard even to this day, 3 volumes, huge book, available for downloading freely. He omits the word Tithi in his translation. Now, I have given this quotation also in Mahāsalilam. You have to see these things if you are interested in this, understanding what are the arguments, why it goes like this. Yeah, this is on page 45 in Mahāsalilam book, Tithi and Karana, which is there. And in the footnote I have given, Sa yat titim yat samam parididesha tat titim samam navam upakalpa upasan chakre. It is in the Shatapatha Brahmana. Now I mentioned that Eggeling, in his widely referred translation, he left out the word Tithi that occurs twice for unspecified reasons. He doesn't say why he has left that word Tithi. You can read his translation also. I think in my paper I have given the translation, not in the book. Now, with these difficulties, if you proceed, in the book by Dikshit, he discusses Tithi. You can see that. And he quotes one sentence from Aitareya Brahmana. Some Tithim is the word which is there. He thinks it can be taken as Tithi. Now, people have pointed out, in the Kaushitiki Brahmana, the same sentence comes. There it is very clearly, it is Tithi. It cannot be read as Tithi. In our work also, I have referred to that and showed that. But then, is the word Tithi Sanskrit or not? The Vaiyakarnas, they don't enter into these discussions. They are happy with whatever they are doing. They don't want to say anything on these things. Then they will say Tithi comes from, the standard answer is there is one Kashikar, I don't remember right. It gives the pratyayas. It is the Tithuk pratyaya. From the Tithuk pratyaya, Tithi is derived is what is the standard answer. Now these pratyayas and all these things, they may be later. The argument is that. Even the dhatus, many of them can be later. The word might have been there. And from the word you might have derived a dhatu. So how do you say that the dhatus were all hanging somewhere and from out of that you constructed these words? It seems like that, many of them. I don't deny. There is a controversy even in the Nirukta that Shakatayana and others, they thought all words come only from dhatus. There are the roots and from that. And the roots are what? You have to think of Dudhai, Dharana, Poshanayoho, Dukring, Karne. These are the dhatus. Now, how do you say that Tithuk belongs to that and you got Tithi? Problematic issues. So, this controversy, the Indological controversy, Indologist controversy, is not meaningless. Let us understand it. We may get angry and say, okay, these white people, they are against us, they do this. Not like that. There is a logic in what they are arguing. Because they are looking at us from an outside perspective. They are looking at our culture, our text, our tradition, our knowledge as outsiders. They see only the outer thing, and that is what they can comment. And why should we get upset with that? If we are sitting inside and we think they are hurting us, we should show them the right thing. In the Mahabharata, the word Tithi comes. And Tithi and Titha both comes. It is used both in Pullinga and Strilinga. The common word Tithi that we use is generally used in Strilinga nowadays. Nobody knows about Tithaha in the Pullinga. But Bahutitha, Titayaha and all those usages are there in Mahabharata also. And it only means Titha is something like a limit that you can go even in the space, that from here to here, that is the end, like that, in the years. In time also you can use the same thing, like Tithi. That is the common thing. But what people argue, Tithi is here, I know now, the Panchami Tithi, Shashti Tithi, Navami Tithi, that is what has to be Tithi. No, that is wrong again, argument. Even in the Mahabharata, the word in that sense comes only once in the falling of Kumara as the Kartikeya on Mahātithi Shashti on the sixth day, which is called the Mahātithi. That's all. It doesn't say anywhere somebody was born on a Panchami Tithi or Shashti Tithi or Navami Tithi kind of. Even for Yudhishthira's thing, it is given as Purna. That day was said as Purna. And even when they went to the forest, Kartikyam says, Navamyam or something it comes. The word Tithi as an appellation is not there. It is sufficient you count 1, 2, 3, 4. Why do you want the extra thing as Tithi? It was not needed. They did not have it. All these controversies arose after the Varahamihira's time, when they took 12-degree separation as a Tithi definition. So in science, definition is very important. These are all technical words, and if it has to be defined, and in that sense only you can use it. If you miss that, you get wrong answers. So for the siddhāntic period, that may be okay. You do whatever you want. And in the Panchanga, he put something, okay, you do that. You have Tithi Patras, now they call it. Fine, you have it. And that Tithi will have no meaning. Did people observe their birthday based on, in the ancient period with the Tithis? You have to question. They had a count, no doubt. But did they use the word Tithi there? These are important issues if you want to retrieve history as insiders. And there are so many variations. Yes? Yeah, I know. Tomorrow is going to Chaitre Navamike Tithau. Right. That is a later word. That part is a later word. It does not belong to the pre-siddhāntic period. Rama would be pre-siddhāntic, very ancient. I am not questioning that.
Rama was born in Navami, that is...
Where else is Tithi? Tell me. If you can show me, we will argue on that later, not today.
But if Tithi was not there, then how the word Atithi came?
What?
If Tithi was not...
That is Aditi.
No, Atithi. Atithi, sir. Atithi.
Atithi. Okay. Good question. In fact, this is what Pandaviji refers in his foreword. Atithi was already there, and from that, Tithi could have come. In fact, in one of my papers also I have written, but it's very tough to argue further, I will say that. Because the letter A, which says, Na Titihi Atitihi, you can say, as per modern Vyakarana. Modern Vyakarana means one which is in Chalti, the Vyakarana. As a Nai, you take the Pratyaya and hence it comes. But many of the Sanskrit words, you see, they can be derived in several ways, and they can give different meanings also, So one has to be very careful. Now, you have the word astika, and you have the word nastika. But na-astika should be anastika, right? Na-achara is anachara. So na-astika could be taken as anastika. But anastika means what? A is opposite. Na-nastikaha, anastikaha, you can say. It leads to what they would call a regression. What's this? Correct. Hence, there is a never-ending thing, so they say, no, you should not interpret it like that. There is a different thing they would give. Fine, I have no objection with those things. But in the Veda, how do you do these things? Vedic words. If you see the word Atithi, at least Sayana's explanation in many places is that one of the things is Na Titihi, it comes on arbitrary date. That means the word Tithi should be taken as some kind of a dating. He says it is derived from the word atati. Atati means he is roaming. So one who keeps on roaming, he doesn't have any place to stay. You have to imagine this in the more ancient period. There are two groups of people, and Yayanaha and the other one is a Sthayanaha. So there are nomads and people who are living in villages or whatever. 5,000 years back or whatever, not today. Even today we have nomads who are there, some of them. They shift from place to place. So he derives that word Atithi in that sense. Who doesn't have any place, he simply keeps on going, and sometimes he rests on in front of my house. You should give him food, because he is an Atithi. He has come without any appointment, not that. There's no reason, nothing, he simply comes, so you have to give food. because you will go away further. So that is the interpretation in some of the places which is given. So you have to be a little bit careful on that. But in the Shatapatha Brahmana, as I said, the word Tithi, he doesn't say what is that, but he says yat thitau tat samam, in some date in which in that year the fish came as promised. Is what is the meaning. Okay, I think I have given you the introduction on this sufficiently, and hence you have to see this text in the right perspective. Now I have covered all this. Let me go quickly. The difference between pre-siddhāntic and siddhāntic, and one thing I have put here, like the astronomy is two branches, astrology is also two. There is a pre-horā astrology and the horā astrology. So the Vedic astrology is pre-horā. Please remember that, because Jyotiṣa is now divided into three streams, Samhita, Ganita and Horā. So the astronomy that we are talking, Vedic astronomy and all that, it is pre-Ganita. Some Ganita has started already. But Horā is not there. It is pre-Horā. And why that also we will see. And Mahāsalila represents both is my climb. Now these things I will quickly go through. You can see the list of manuscripts in the book I have given already. These are the manuscripts. Tomorrow you can go and see them if you are interested further. This division I have already given. Yesterday also I showed you. This dating also I have given. The important thing that you have to bear in mind, you need not worry even about how you got and all those details. It contains a period of about 1,000 years in it. In some manner it has. These are the contents. The content is very simple. Out of that enormous corpus, now an independent book has been produced. That is what you have to understand. And the four words you have to read. People who know Sanskritam, they should read Pandurangi. Even otherwise you will be able to follow that. It's a very simple Sanskrit. All of you know Sanskrit here reasonably well? Who doesn't know Sanskrit? Raise your hand. Can you read Devanagari or no? No. Oh, then I think it will be difficult. Now, all others know Sanskritam. Now, the reason is this. See, your interest may be in 100 different ways. I'm not questioning those things. You may be some PhD candidates, some people who are interested in stories, some people interested in history, variety of things. But you want to enjoy, particularly ancient astronomy, the Vedic upakhyanas even, the stories. You may be only a storyteller. You may not be interested in the astronomy. You learn some Sanskritam. Without Sanskrit, you will not be able to enjoy these things as insiders. You will only be listening to what Pingree and other people who translate and give you, you will be reading that. So please learn some minimum amount of Sanskritam. Maybe some 2 semester course or 1 semester course, something you have to take. Okay, that much is sufficient, because even this Mahāsalila text you can understand if you know Sanskritam reasonably well. You need not even read my translation. The original itself conveys so much. I have tried to put in as a translation, whereas the translation will not give the nuances of the original, And the stories, the dramas of Rohiṇī and Soma remaining only with Rohiṇī, they are all nuanced. They are all like dramas and poetry. Okay, that much is sufficient. We go further. We have I said about the introduction, that is the first chapter. What I have done in the first chapter is only to give all the background information, which you would need to understand this book as an independent text without even knowing anything about Vedic astronomy or Garga or Parashara and all of that. All that information I have tried to fill up here. And in the second chapter is mostly about why it is Vedāṅga. What is its connection with Veda? Now, to understand this, you have to know the Vedic text and match them. Between the Vedic text and here, what is the overlap? How that can be understood only if you know this, otherwise you can't understand something in the Vedas. And Vedic text can be taken as Yajnika and as Adhidaivata and Adhyatma. This is the Adhidaivata interpretation, where it comes. All that I have discussed in my chapter 2. There is no Sanskritam there, it is only as an English running I have given the details. Even the astrology which comes up, the Rohiṇī story, that also I have covered in the second chapter. So if you see one little bit, which you can read for yourself, I will quickly go through this. I have given an introduction to Tithi and Karana. That's what we were studying in page 45. And if on page 46, you see I have given the shape of moon. This is how the text is put up. There's an appendix. All the things which are published, I have put up as an appendix, some 5 of the chapters. Now, the text itself starts, but you can read first and second chapter first. You need not go to the third chapter where the translation notes are there. That would be kind of an advanced study you can have. In other words, this book can be taught as a 1-semester course or maybe a 2-semester course. Like Parashara Tantra can also be taught as a 1-semester course. There, of course, you need some other extra information, a little bit of astronomy. But here almost nothing is needed because this is all directly visible things what they have written. They have not worked out any astronomy here. So this should be understandable by anyone. Only thing is you have to have that perspective, what they are telling you have to understand. And the nuance comes only from the Vedas. So the third chapter, the original, needs a lot of notes if you want to go there. But the second chapter doesn't need anything, you can directly read. And this Tithi is, in fact, I have pointed out, it is same as in English you would say 10th, 11th, 13th. The TH which is there, the end, which is a limiter. It limits. 10th means 10th. It may be a row, 10th minute. It can be anything. It can be time or space. In fact, even in Sanskrit as well as in many, even in English, when you say prak, pura can be front, prak can also be front. It can also be in time. So same thing even in English also. Sometimes we say front, sometimes before I say. He is standing before me. He came before I came. It is a time. So these things happen. In Sanskritam also it is similar. So if you see this word Tithi, which as it has come up, later on he himself gives in the inside, talking about Purnima, it is a Purna Tithi is the word which comes for the first time. In the Mahāsalila, in the Sanskrit text. We go further, then you can see that sentence. When moon's face, Asyam he says, Asya is face, or the seat, or the sitting place, when it becomes full, that time is what is called Purna Tithi. Kalo bhavati, he says, it is the time at that instant. So it is a limit. Again, punaravartate, it immediately changes and goes further. So the word Tithi is used as a limiter the first time in this text. So that should sort out some of the problems people have with respect to the Vedic usage of the word Tithi. And later on, in Indian tradition, the word coming as Tithi. And in Mahabhashya uses that word Tithi, and I have given references to that also here. So people, for Sanskrit people, there should be a reference for that. Now, that Karana also I have discussed here. I have given a table on page 51, if you can see. And I have given a detailed discussion how from Taitiri Brahmana, the 60 names you needed, Prajnanam, Vijnanam, and all that, got replaced by only these numbers. This was sufficient to have 7 Charakarnas and 4 Sthirakarnas, totally only 11 names, because the names became important. Instead of the 60 names you remember, you have only 11 names. 4 are fixed. The remaining 7, they rotate. So finished. So you can understand everything with reference to that. That is again Vruddha contribution. First time it comes in VGJ. It is in the other adhyayas, but to understand that I have put up here. Because Mahāsalilam uses Kim Stugnam. Karanam it uses. Tithi it comes up only in the Purna Tithi. So Karana was the original usage. I hope you follow. Tithi came later, but people have later on merged the two. Today nobody bothers about Karana. It is only the Tithi important. Half of Tithi is taken as Karana. But the names of the Karana are given same even today in the Panchanga. So be careful on these things. Then about the Graha. This is the table which I have given. That is about the planets. One question which commonly comes up in all discussions, did the Vedics know the planets, the 5 planets? People would say no. In the Veda there are no Graha. Then what is the Graha which Vedikas use? The Soma Graha is there. The Aditya Graha is there. There are Ekavimshati Graha is there. The 21 Grahas is what Sayana has mentioned in the Yajna. They will say Graha means only a pot. Graha means only a lota. Actually a loshta. It is out of mud or even it can be daru. It is a cup. Because it holds something. True. So in the Adi Yajna meaning, Graha is only a cup. But in the Adidaiva meaning, what it is, if you have to see, understand that, you have to read my paper or my article on the Dhruva which I have given you. Dhruva Graha is the most important Graha in Agni Chayana and in Agnishtoma. And the Soma Rasa is collected in 9 of them in the morning, and Dhruva Graha is one of them. And that Dhruva Graha, you treat it as a cup only. It's a cup. That cup is kept in the north. And the all other Grahas, cups are kept in the south. These discussions are available in the Samhita itself. And the mantra used for that drawing Soma is Dhruva Kshitihi, Dhruva Yonihi, which is the Taittiriya Aranyaka, the Shishumara, that mantra only. You are fixed. Now, what the Purva Paksha people would say is, yeah, the cup is fixed. So it is kept there as fixed. That's all the Dhruva. Simply because it is kept in north, why do you say it has an astronomical meaning? If you have to know that, you have to read and understand, as I showed for the number 3339, where it comes as a composite. Then you know the context and understand it. The Dhruva Graha is in the Taittiriya Samhita first Kanda. The explanations are available in the 6th Kanda. See, there are 7 books. Each book is of this size. Some of them are thrice this size. The printed versions, tomorrow you can see Maybe Smita and others can show also those books which are there with the Vyakhyanas and other things. Now, Yajurvedians, of course, learn in the Gurukula. In the Yajurveda, whole Ganapata, if you have to do all of this, all the Kandas, it takes some 3 years by heart and all that. When do you know the meaning? And the Brahmana part gives the meaning. Samhita part doesn't give the meaning. Now, in the sutras, they use both of them and they have started the rituals. Now, nobody goes into the originals and does that. They go by, like in government things, they will use the service registers. I mean, the service handbooks, SR as they call it. Each year a new SR comes, as per that you know the rules. You don't go to the constitution, you don't go to the gazette and do all of that. Same thing here. So if you see the 6th Kanda, I have given that also, gives a akhyana. Why Dhruva should be kept in the north, Dhruva Graha, why all the other Grahas are kept in the south. Because Asuraha Prithvim Paryachikirshan, Pura Paryachikirshan. Asuras, some kind of negative forces, they wanted to turn the Prithvi. Paryachikirshan means they want to turn. Then Deva Dhruva Grahena Adrumhanta. So they kept the Dhruva in the north. It's clearly say Uttare Sadhyate in the Uttara, in the northern part. Uttara can also be high. Uttaraha, that has double meaning there. And that is called Dhruvasya Dhruvatvam. So Dhruva Graha is because of that. Now you see whether there is an astronomical connection or not for that. So if Graha later on are called Panchatara Graha, they were all holders of Soma in the Yajna. But in the sky, they were a holder of Soma, an esoteric Soma in the sky. Don't call it sky, we call it in English sky, you call it Dyauh. It's a cosmic thing. So Soma, as you would say later on in this text itself, it is the Agni-Soma principle, that is the principle which is irreducible, beyond which you cannot say anything. Maximum you can say Soma is positive, Agni is negative. Soma is man, male, Agni is female. That much you can say. It is the combination of these two. The whole cosmos is according to this. That is the Agni-Soma. And who are these people? He goes to him, in the first sentence is there, just I will read only one of them. Angirasam Maharshim Vriddha Gargam. Vishwamitra comes to him, to Vriddha Garga. And who was Vriddha Garga? It is there. Let me see. Abhisamikshya, Maharshi Vishwamitro, Amartim Ugratapasam Sharvada Ananta Vijnanam Hutagni Hotram Krita. Okay. So maybe it will come later on. He is the equivalent of Agni-Soma, it comes, So he himself is an Agni-Soma kind of, yeah.
This episode in the Gangetic area is going on. This episode is going on the Gangetic area, that part. Bhagirathyaha Sudharvadina.
No, it's a Bhagirathyaha Sudharvadina. Now, Bhagirathi, is it Gangetic delta?
Himalaya.
So who is Bhagirath? Then you have to get into other things. So the Puranic things don't put it here. You have to have a chronological concept. That's what I've been telling for all the last 4 days. Don't conflict. Have that in your mind. You have to have a parallel processing. You have that in your brain. Nothing against it. Then you will get a comparison. Because later on, from that is mentioned in the discussions. But this is actually, this is Mahāsalilam, this is Anuvyakhyasya. Oh, where is Vyakyasa? Why no Vyakyasa? Is already something was there, that he is again discussing. No. So there would have been another version of this which is not available to us. So you have to be a little bit careful. Okay. I just wanted to show that one, but it's not here. Maybe in some other place it comes. If you can search, somebody can search, you will know that Agnishoma Prabhavam or something it comes. Leave it as that. You can read it yourself. Now, these are the Panchatara Graha which is there, and these also are connected with Soma. They can also have Soma. That would mean they also represent Kala. It's not only Chandra who represents Kala, the others also represent Kala. In other words, they are always part and parcel of a rhythm or a rhythm. And this is the meaning why Jyotisha is called a Kala Vidhana Shastra or a Kala Nirnaya Shastra. I hope you follow that. It's not just the Muhurta and all that. The prediction and the forecasting, those things are different. There's the Palita. That is all, I would say, an inferior type of Kala Vidhana. Nothing wrong in that, but it's an inferior type of it. Whereas the superior type is going to see all of this and gives you a time for marriage, time for other functions, time for so many agricultural purposes. There are the higher type of Kala Vidhana. And all that will be done only by looking at the sky and also earth. So these are all together. Today we think of grahas as something different. They are going to be Papa Graha and it's going to affect me here, affect me there. That concept was not there. It was more a fluid and a natural concept. Okay, now this Graha I am showing because in the Vedas to identify planets is very difficult. But here it is very clear. And the grahas are mentioned in terms of their brightness. All the five are there: Shukra, Brihaspati, Angaraka, Shani and Buddha. And Buddha is called Panchama. Buddha is the fifth one. Because perhaps they did not know Buddha in the beginning, they knew only the four, and hence after that they included Buddha, so he is called Panchama. Panchama Graha itself, he gives that. And their rays are given, and what I have done is only plotted them with reference to the modern magnitudes. And you can see the modern magnitudes and the number of rays given. Ray means what? Rashmi. Shodasha Rashmi is Shukra. But relative to Sun, Sun is Sahasra Rashmi. Chandra is Shatarchin, 100 Rashmi. So these are numbers which are there. As I have been telling, in the Adhidaivata Paksha, numbers are the most important thing, apart from other things. So numbers are available here. These numbers are there in the early Purana also. Brahmanda Purana also gives more or less the same Rashmi numbers. So it has to be some kind of a brightness is my argument. And brightness is correlated with the modern magnitude. That is why I plotted the magnitude. It doesn't mean anything more than that. It only means this is observational astronomy for anybody to know. It is not a table which has been given. Argument is like that. Babylonians, they have a table. Their tables are visible even today. I can touch them. The clay tablets, thousands of them are available. What is there for you? You have only some mantra, some worldly mumbo jumbo. What is the meaning of it? Sayana says something, Nirukta says something, and your own teacher says something, Vyakarana says something. And they will say, even Shakapuni said, there is no meaning for Veda mantras at all, even in the Nirukta's time, There is no meaning for the Veda mantras. But it is not so. That's what I have tried to show here. with the help of this Mahāsalilam. If I go line by line, you will feel bored and you will sleep. So I don't want to do that. There are very interesting things which goes. The first part, the first adhyaya is question. That is prashnadhyaya. There are only questions which are there. About 100 questions are there. If you open out your chapter 3, you will say the first adhyaya is question. The questions themselves are very interesting. And those questions even today are there. It's the same questions you can ask. And many of them cannot be answered. For example, the question like, at what distance is sun from earth? How is sun standing? How is earth standing? And what are these grahas? How did all this creation happen? Why the weeds are there? And from the weeds, how does the tree come? From the seed, how does the tree? These are the kind of questions, very serious questions. And what are nakṣatras? How do they indicate an action on earth? What do they indicate to us, human beings on earth? These are the questions which are there. And Vedāṅga tries to answer them. And you see, one of the questions I will read here. Kati chaitani nakṣatrani, katham esham nakṣatratvam. How many nakṣatras are there? Why do they get the name nakṣatra? Katham va some samavasanti. Some samavasanti. Do they stay inside Soma? They in Chandra? But in the nakṣatranam upaste soma ahitaha in the Rig Veda comes. So what is the connection between this avasanti means something like the relation? How do they stay near Soma? It's a double meaning. Can be Chandra, it is time. Kinchesham devatā prayojanam. There is a devatā for each of the nakṣatra. What is the use of that? Katham was soma sanyutani karmanyani bhavanti. When they are joined with Soma, they become karmanya. Means like kanyopanayana, I said. In Kritika nakṣatra, you can do kanyopanayana. That I think they already knew. These are only the standardization of that. Anyai grahaihi sanyuktani akarmanyani. You bring some others and graha and you say it is akarmanya. Is not a prediction. Not the purohita, the priest is telling this graha is there, so it becomes akarmanya. They say naturally it becomes akarmanya. On its own it becomes akarmanya. This is a cosmic thing. That is what they are questioning. Kim idanim katham va deepayati. How do they shine? And then samvatsara rutu parva graha nakṣatra muhurta karananam va kim pramanam. Samvatsara, Rutu, Parva, Graha, Nakṣatra, Muhurta, Karanana. This Parva Graha is a complicated word. You divide it as Parva, you separate it as a Graha, you get some meaning. It's a modern meaning. Parva Graha is the single word there. Because Parva is what? Is a joint, These are the joints. Which is the joint? For the Prajapati, it is Darsh, the Paurnamasa and the Amavasa. They are the Parvas. What is Parva Graha? Something happens in Parva. Something holds in the Parva. The joints are supposed to hold us together, right? So even these Parvas are holding the cosmos, the Amavasya Paurnima, because Prajapati is held by that. And that Parva Graha goes to actually Rahu later on, you would see. Because something captures. Nakṣatra Muhurta Karanana Pramanam, what is the magnitude? Measure. That is what he is asking. And Adihiva, which is the first one I have to take? You have 27 nakṣatra, which is the first one? You have Samvatsara, which is the first one? That is the question. Katham veme saptarshayah paryagachanti. How do these saptarshis rotate? They go around. Bhrigu agastya mriga vyadadayascha paryagachanti. You have to add it here. Bhrigu is Shukra, Agastya, Mriga Vyada is Sirius. that is the one who, the hunter, you know. They also go, rotate in some manner, right? You can see their thing. Today planet will be faster, nakṣatras, daily you see a rotation. The next day something else comes as a visible thing, you know. And this is a Mrgavyadha is Agastya, they are southern stars. Saptarshi is northern. So you see the difference, how geographically already a combination is happening. And for I have given this as paragraphs, so for easy reading in the text you can do that. And then the cosmos comes up, that is the creation, how did it happen? Salilo mimasi dande tamasi. I will not read this. Yesterday there was a question about Bhrigu. I think Pravesh Vyas or somebody asked that, you know. Yeah, how did it happen? Bhuva iti antariksham suvariti devan sacha purvameva tejasa agnima sarjata. So whoever is that Brahman, he had already created Agni, that is Aditya, as per the Vedic things. And then tasmat purvam jolitarchihi juhvan. Purvam, before, jolitarchi, it was burning. It was a kind of a burning gas is what they are imagining. Uto Bhrigu ajayata. In that Bhrigu came up as some kind of, I would call it proto-Venus is what I have put up. Tatra angiraha samabhavat. After this birth, the coal remained. Whatever was that medium, it remained. And what was that coal? Salilimiva asidande tamasi niramaye loke. Now tamasi, you take it as darkness. But here it is the tamas itself is the substance. And the salila is the name given for that. And that is called salila miva. It was like fluid. Something was dark. And then andam divya rupam adbhutam sambhabuva. It was an egg. I am showing this because this is almost same as in the Jaimini Brahmana. Jaimini Brahmana is one of the Brahmanas of the Soma Veda. Tadidam apo mahat salilim asit, etc. Apova idamagre mahat salilam asit. Apaha urmayaha samasyanta paliti. So in that salila, in that primordial water, waves got generated and they were hitting pal iti. And if you learn this mantra, you have to use pluta here. 3 is that pal iti. You have to do that, you know, while you utter that mantra. Tad hiranyam amandam samaishat. All this became a hiranyanda. Palliti evedam andam nirabhidyata. Then palliti nirabhidyata. So it broke, pat. These are the initial vavshat and other things which have been taken up later on. They are the cosmic sounds. So the cosmic sound is this pat, which has gone into the swaha and also the vashat and swadha. The meanings are there, but these are the sounds. Then tasya yad adharam kapalam asit seyam prithivya bhavat. The bottom part of that shell was the prithvi. Ata yad uttaram asit sa asau dyauha bhavat. The top one was dyauha. Ata yad antara asit tadidam antariksham bhavat. This is in the Jaimini Brahmana. Because Pandering has quoted this, you know. The correspondence between the Vedas and this, how it is, this is Vedāṅga. You will not be able to understand the Vedic statements. What is this? Pal. Oh, there will people say, what is this? And in fact, these are all, some of them are onomatopoeic words. You know, you would say how something breaks. Phat. It is onomatopoeic. That is the sound which comes up. Larger number of Vedic words are onomatopoeic. That is, the natural sound itself has become a word later on. Of course, this is known. Nirukta and all these things, if you see, you will get. You say karkara, karkasha. What is karkasha? How did it come? It sounds itself like the like that, So you have to be careful if you want to understand these things, And this concept is there in other texts also, like Manusmriti and Rigveda. And I will skip this. Oh, something has gone off. The geography is totally gone. I can't see here. There is a geography which is explained after the creation. And that you can, page 84, 85, you can see how the creation happened, how India got formed. Samudraha Sagara Kshirodam, that is in page 85. Then comes in page 86, Shatka Mahaparvataha Himavantam Hemakutam. So Himavan and these things, how they came up, that geography is also explained. We break for coffee? Okay. We break and come back. There are 2 or 3 important things which I have to cover in this next 1 hour. People have been asking about this Rohiṇī Chandra and the starting of Indian astrology, what is given here as per the Mahāsalilam. But there are a few other things, almost everything is important. But unless we know the moon and the grahas, we can't proceed further. The other things I can skip, the geography and those things. For the moon, that is the Tithi concept. Yeah. This is how the brightness of moon changes. That is, this is Purnima, you assume. This figure, can you see, all of you? And this you assume it has 100%. This will be Amavasya, where the shine is 0. That means it's totally gone. And this also varies depending on whether it is apogee or perigee. It is far away or nearby. These are some of the astronomical things. You take it for granted. That is the Ucha and the Nicha. It doesn't straight away decrease, even though said each day 1 kala is decreasing as per the Purana. It is not exactly right. What happens is, initially it is slow, then it is very fast, up to the 10th day. From 10th, that is Dashami. From Dashami to Panchadashi, it will be again slow. In other words, it means if this is Purnima, full moon, you go to the next day, that will be Krishna Paksha Pratipat, or the first day. Very hard to say whether it is Purnima or it has changed. Similarly, you go previously, that will be the Chaturdashi. It may already be looking like a full moon. So the full moon, very hard to make out the changes unless it changes, you come to the 3rd or the 4th day. In other words, this is a non-linear variation. Now what these people have done, yesterday I showed you that Tithis, 5 Tithis, Nanda, Bhadra, Rikta and Purna, and the same thing is repeated by others, by one of the systems. And the origin of that is here. What he says, that 5 kalas are drunk on the Panchami, and then another 5 kalas are taken away on Dashami. The remaining 5 kalas go away at the 3rd part. Now this is actually a Vedic mantra that is in the Shadvimsha Brahmana, again the Samaveda. Chandramasaha kshayavriddhir bhavati yadavai chandrama kshiyate cha apyayate cha dadanu vyakyasyamaha. This is from the Vedic Brahmana I am telling. This is with the accents. Purva pakshe deva dikshante, this is all known. Pratamam panchakalam panchamim bhakshayanti. Then Rudra dvitiyam panchakalam dashamim pakshayanti. So he says Vasu, Rudra, Aditya, and these are the 3 referring devatas or the important forces with reference to which five colors are taken away, then Shodashi remains. The 16th part remains. So that is why the moon has 16 parts or 15 parts, and Kala is sometimes called 1 by 16. As a measure, Kala is taken as 1 by 16. And you know, initially, before, a rupee had 16 parts. The ancient rupee had 16 parts. And each part was called an anaka. Anaka, there are Sanskrit words. Ana in English, anaka. That had 12 parts. Each anaka had 12 parts. I hope you people know that. We had all in our primary school calculations to be done as rupee, anas and pais, they would say. Rupai, ane, kasu. So each anaka will have another 4 pais or 4 kashi, or what you may say, damdi in the older things, They are available, even that pies and those things, in some museums. Anyway, British took the same system. When they introduced this, rupee had to have 16 parts because it is the full kind of something like a moon. Anyway, this is the 16th kala is remaining, he says. This is an important concept. Why didn't it become 0? Today I would say it is 0. Oh, everything has been removed. That 0 concept had not yet come. Not a limitation. This is the starting point of that. When the concept of 0 came up in India, Shunya, it has come up from these. I have discussed that in the book. I can't go into the details of that. How did it happen? There are 2 things which are there. Purna Tithi Paurnamasam Kalo Bhavati. That you can visually see. That it's filling up, then it becomes full. Even though it may be difficult to exactly say, once it changes, you should know it had filled up somewhere. Without fully filling up, how can it happen? So that is the instantaneous time of filling up. That is what is called Purna Tithi. You read it yourself. It is called the Purna Tithi. Purnima day is different because each day is only 30 muhurtas. So the day may be longer, but the instant is just like that. You can't hold it because it is continuously going. Second, you come to the Amavasya, what happens? That also I have given the important concept of Sannaya. On the Amavasya day, Chandra is supposed to be, not Chandra I should say, in the Puranas it would be said like that, Soma comes to earth and stays on the Amavasya day, where in the herbs, in the grass, in the oshadi, in cows, and in the water bodies, that is the lakes and tirtha kshetras, and among the ahitagnis are the brahmanas. That is where Soma will be staying on the Amavasya day because it's not visible. What happened was the question. Then what happened? He is seen in the west in the evening. That is Darsha. See, generally you look to the east to see moon or sun or whatever. But when first it is seen on the Amavasya day, it is in the west. That is called Darsha. In between what happened? That is Sannaya. Not the day which is of 30 muhurtas. And if you go back before Amavasya, what was happening? That is the Krishna Chaturdashi. Krishna Chaturdashi, you see in the east, because every day sunrise has to be seen to count the Ahargana. Ahargana they were doing only with reference to the sunrise. You see the sunrise, moon orb is seen. Chaturdashi, Chandra, is seen before sunrise or above sun. That is the Masa Shivaratri. Masa Shivratri happens every Masa, right? That is on the Chaturdashi. Am I right? Chaturdashi, Krishna Chaturdashi is actually the Masa Shivratri. Don't worry about the exact instant as given in the Panchanga. That is not important. So above sun, you see the moon's orb, crescent. But then the Amavasya starts. Whole thing is vanishing. You can't see. Some days you don't see moon at all. Sometimes you look to the west, then also he is not seen. That is because of the elliptic nature of the orbit and so many other things. There are later developments. But in between Darsha and Amavasya, what happened was the question. Now in the Purnima it was easy because you have seen almost the full moon orb and then you know that it's decreasing even though you can't see it, but once again it repeats. So something it might have filled up and then it has leaked. The Soma or the Rasa or the shining or whatever it is, it has gone. That is, the Devas have come, taken something. Paurnamasyam abhishunvanti. So they have taken away something. But in the Amavasya what happens? He was with sun on the Chaturdashi because I saw his crescent in the morning in the east. Now when I keep on watching, I turn to my west and I see him. Sun has already gone down. It is dark. Otherwise you can't see moon. Already has gone down. So you see that he was with sun, he traveled with sun, and then he has separated from sun. This comes up in the Brahmanas that on the 15th day, moon enters into sun or enters into the mouth of the sun kind of thing. The stories are there. Now, the Indologists have taken this and misinterpreted that they are all imaginary stories. It's a primitive story that sun as a crocodile would swallow moon and kinds of things. Well, you can say like that, but this is the principle which is there. And the Brahmana stories are here very clearly said. Moon was taken, Sannayati, he was taken from the Amavasya day and then placed there. And he became a darsha. He could be seen. These are the faces of Prajapati himself. You know, Prajapati has 4 faces. As Chaturmukha Brahma is another thing. Brahma is Prajapati, Vishnu is Prajapati, everybody is Prajapati. Take it in that sense. Darsha Purnamasa, here itself it says there are the 2 faces of Prajapati. Which are the other 2? It is the Sayam and this Prataha are the 4 faces is what it says. Sayam and Prataha, when? Every day, evening and morning. There are so many evenings and mornings. Between Darsha and Paurnamasa, or Paurnamasa to Paurnamasa you can take. There is one Sayam, Sandhya and Pratas Sandhya, and one Sayam Sandhya. So in the Pratas Sandhya, Ashtami you see the face in the center. And in the other Paksha, you see in the evening. In the Krishna Paksha, you see in the morning, early morning, Ashtami. That is one face. It always turns towards sun. And in the Shukla Paksha, you can see in the evening, again turning towards sun. These are the half faces, you can call it. These are the 4 faces. One to the east, one to the west, one to the south, one to the north. That is the iconography which has come up of the Chaturmukha. So it is the month is connected with moon. The Sayam and Prataha is not every day. You should not take it that sense. It is the middle. Okay. Now, this is the mantra, the text here of the 52, and I showed the correspondence, why this should be taken as Vaidika. Then about Graha. If I finish this, then I can go to the other things. The Graha I mentioned already a little bit. Now, how many grahas are there is the question. It is very clear, Vedoktanam grahanam ashtashatam sankhyayate. There are 108 grahas. What are they? Tatra ekashatam ketunam patyate. First he said about ketus, 101. Somarko pancha tara graha. So pancha tara graha is the standard word. They look like the star planets you can call them. They are not stars. They are not nakṣatras. But they look like that. That is the Tara Graha. And Soma or cow. Soma and Arka, Chandra and Moon, they are the other two. So totally 108. Now 101, which are these Ketus? They are the comets or some transient objects. Totally it has to be 101. Now this has led to quite a bit of controversy, and people have asked me, what about the Navagrahas and all that? Do in the Navagraha Puja. In the Navagraha Puja, Ketu is in plural number. People don't know this. Ketun pranamamyaham is the one which comes there in the Dhyana Shloka. Tan Ketun pranamamyaham. Somebody uses Tam Ketum pranamamyaham, it is his choice. But who is this Ketu? It is not the descending node. It is Rahu is, you may call him the ascending node if you want. Later on that tradition has come. But at both the nodes, eclipse is possible, if you see from the modern point of view. And in all ancient texts, including Ramayana, it is Rahu who causes either solar eclipse or lunar eclipse. Rahu simply captures Soma and Arka. It is a principle. It is simply a shade. It is a shadow. It's explained here also. Then what about Ketu? Ketu is not, in the horoscope you may put like that. That is your choice. You are given a different name for Ketu. It was not at all prevalent before in the pre-BCE period. Ketus were always comets. And the visible comets are 26. That comes up in the Parashara Tantra. He gives the list. In the Vedāṅga Jyotiṣa, here a few of them are mentioned. Mahāsalilam also. And a few of the names are in the Rig Veda also. And it's more imagery. That is, if you say Varavantam in which is moving, a fast moving horse in the sky with a fiery tail, it has to be a Dhumaketu only, what we call today Dhumaketu. And I have written on that, but there is no time for me to cover all those things. Now, this is what I had put up here for the Tara Grahas, the 5 ones, and he gives all the details. You please go through that. And this is the graph I was explaining here. And then Rahu comes up. Rahu comes how Ata Aparaha Agantuhu Mrityuputraha. He is called Mrityuputra. He is Agantu. Agantu, if you see the original meaning, he comes without appointment. Agantu is actually the Atithi, but Agantu is something like unwanted. We do get guests sometimes unwanted. So he comes unwanted sometimes. So how did he come? There is a story. Let us not worry about it. Savai Shanmasye Parvani Yugapad Upatishtati. Shanmasye Parvani, every 6 months in the Parva, Yugapad Utpaditi. Suddenly with the Parva he comes. In other words, it's not simply Amavasya Purnima. There has to be some Parva, a joint. That joint is the node, which became later on the node. And this is connected with the concept of Purna Tithi, Paurnamasyam Kalo Bhavati, and Sannayam. Sannayam is in between Darsha and Amavasya. Now, mathematicians may understand this far better. You have a line which is negative, and it goes to the positive region. It has to cross zero. You can call it the Rolle's theorem or mean value theorem, whatever name you may give. But the concept is that. That is why Sannaya is there. And that Sannaya, in the Yajnika thing, They do that because the Raja Yakshma has to be removed. If the Yajamana had the Raja Yakshma, that is consumption, what is called tuberculosis today, it's not exactly consumption. Ayurvedic people may have different kinds of yakshmas and all that. We'll not go into those details. But Sanaya has to be offered because moon, Chandra had got yakshma, and from Sanaya, gods removed his yakshma. And that happens with Saptadasha Ahuti. Not the Shodasha, but Saptadasha Kalam Nirvapayate. That comes up there. In other words, 15 colors are already gone. 16th is remaining is what initially they said, because they could not start with 0. Always the counting was from 1. But cosmically what happened is the question. That is Sanaya. How did Sanaya, the gods, do? Saptadasha kalam nirvapayati. Prajapati Saptadasha kalam nirvapayati. Nirvapayati is what? He removes. Is actually he shaves off the Saptadasha kalam. Nirvapayati. Vapanam, nirvapanam is that. And what do the Yajnikas do? They do Sanaya. They mix milk and curds, that is called Sanaya, and they offer Sanaya on the Darsha day. Because Sanaya has already happened for moon, because they are seeing Darsha. So they have to remember that and offer that. Then the Yakshma has gone. This is a drama, a simulation, as I would call it in modern ways, of what is done by the gods, what is happening in the sky, is a replica of that to remember, or maybe just for fun, or just because I want to identify myself with the universe. In fact, many of the mantras are like that. They themselves say, I am a god, I am Surya, I am this, I am Soma, so I am doing this. So they are trying to do an identification. Don't mistake this for the later Vedanta. Now, I know that the Adhyatma people would see, starting from Agnimile Purahitam, everything is only this, Vedanta, Vedanta, only Brahman. Absolutely not correct. You may, after studying the Upanishads and all of that, you may go back and say it looks like this. But what about this? And what about the Yajnika people? They come and do all of that ahutis. Are they identifying themselves as human beings? No. It is a kind of simulation, they were, at least in the early times they were doing. What purpose? It becomes social, anthropological, and group thinking that somebody has to research and do investigation. It is not part of this. It is something far serious than all of this. Why they did? The season identification yesterday, I said, they looked at people and said, your eye is red, so this may be this kind of thing. So how this develops? I will leave it at that. Then every 6 months, it is possible that you can get an eclipse. But not exactly every 6 months. Possibility is there because a Parvani Yugapad Upatishtati, that is Rahu. When Rahu along with the Parva comes, it is eclipse. But Parva is already there. That is why that Yugapat is there. Otherwise, only one may be there. And Rahu is, after all, Shariram Akritva Shiro Varnand Vidarshayan Bahubhi Varna Samsthanaihi Garhada Mokshabhyam Himsati Prajaha. He Himsati only, Rahu. And where? He can do either for sun or for moon. And it is only Shariram Akritva. He doesn't have any. It is only by the shadow he hurts and by the color. Okay. And this comes up later on the Rahuchara, which we have not yet edited. It is the 6th Anga or so. And that, not 4th Anga, I think. That is yet to be edited, where all these periods are given. 6 monthly period, 3.5 year period, several periods are there. That is yet to be investigated. Then what about Ketu? There is a full chapter in the Vedāṅga Jyotiṣa called Ketu Mala. One paper we have published in the Tirupati journal, Mahāsalilam. If you are interested, you can see that. In fact, Sudarshan's part PhD was on that. Sudarshan was here a few days back, So you can see that. Full 101 names are given of the comets which are there. And as I said about Parashara, there also 26 comets are visible. And this is actually Dhumaketu, because the question is there. Katham va ime Dhumaketuha pradurbhutaha kadiva parisankhyaye. Always he wants to count. And kincha esha varna sankhyanam. What is their color? Shikha parimanam. What is the length of the thing, their tuft? That is the length of this, That is the shikha. And ke drishyante. Which are the ones which can be seen? Ke antarhitaha tishtanti. Which are the comets which I cannot see, but they are hiding behind sun. There is a theory also here. He says, Agniputra Raktavarnaha Trihastaha Tesham. These Agniputra are red, they are 3 hasta long. Hasta is this, This hasta, they are of 3 hasta long. That is what he gives. Approximate estimation, maybe about 30 degrees or 20 degrees or something of that kind. And I will not read this full. How do they come up is the question. Then there is a difference of opinion between Garga and Baguri. Baguri stvaha tatvan netam etepi va merum paryagachanti surya rashmin vahmanaha surya muktaha drishyante. They also go around sun, and only when they are separated from sun you can say, not otherwise. So this is his argument. And what Garga says is, nakṣatrani upasrijanti. Etehi udayasthana dupana samsparshaihi nakṣatrani upasrijanti. Can occult the stars. Because Saptarshi was occulted, Shishumara was occulted, and in the Kaushik Sutra it is very clear you have to do a special homa for that. Because the Saptarshis were captured by the Ketus. Sarva eva nairite suryasa abitaha charaha. That is what Garga says. They can always be seen generally in the southwest direction of sun. That is in the evening, southwest when he is setting also. Even today that is true in the west. Nacha yesham udayastamana darshanani ityaha Garga. There is no set, there is no rise for them. Because he was using the sun's thing for the Aitareya Brahmana. There is no Nimrochiti, there is no Udayati for sun. The same thing for them also. So these are the difference of opinion which is listed here. It is a very real kind of thing. Then Dhruva Meru is there for mentioning, for measurement. And then the Rohiṇī Soma legend comes up. And somebody yesterday asked about dimensions of planets. Yes, there is some Vishkamba which is given. There is a list there. You can study them yourself. It is there. I have translated anyway. But I have not done any comparison or whatever. This size of the planets, including size of stars, are there. Swati, the bright stars, how many yojana, very small numbers are given, but they seem to be something like a diameter. But diameter you can't estimate, I know that, but should be something relative. Now on this work, even Puranas and Surya Siddhānta give some dimensions. The diameter of the planets and stars. That is a very ancient tradition which is coming here. So Surya Siddhānta has very ancient information. That is quite clear. Everybody agrees with that. But what that information was the question. Why I am mentioning this? Yesterday I showed one book of Thomson, of the cosmography of the Bhagavata Purana. He discusses this. He was an astrophysicist from MIT. He passed away very young, 45 or 50 passed away. But a very brilliant person. He has looked into the Bhagavata. I wish he had looked into other texts also. Anyway, you read that book. And he has written on Surya Siddhānta also what that diameter may mean. Directly diameters don't mean anything. Like I showed the Rashmi and all of that. It is the relative thing which matters. If the ratio, sun's brightness to the brightness of Shukra, 1000 Rashmi to 16 Rashmi, logarithmically how did it change? They are still visible. And that ratio is the scientific thing. Because the absolute numbers are different. You can have 1000, you can have 100, you can have 30. Like 24 hours today, 30 muhurtas in the previous time. It is the ratio which matters. And the ratios are the meanings in many of the things. In the first talk itself, I was mentioning about Rupa Samriddhi, what is meaning, how do you get this meaning in the Agnika and all of this. The meaning is generally, when it comes to measure, it is a ratio. Like somebody is tall, somebody is short, maybe 1/4, 1/3, something of that kind. Okay? So keep this in mind, then you will be able to understand the other things. Now this Rohiṇī, Soma Rohiṇī legend, because there is one person who doesn't follow Sanskrit, I have to show this in the second chapter, 2.6 onwards it is there. That is page 60 onwards. Amma ungala pathingala neenga kelunga. You are able to locate. Stars become nakṣatra. Neenga angirinda adha padikkanum fulla. Then comes natal astrology in 2.7. The drama is in 89 to 90, 91, 92. That MS is the paragraph number, which I have translated to some extent in 64, 65 page number. That you have to read. Okay, I will tell this story, you can read it later on. Now, if you see, now Chandra, that is Soma, he has this cycle of increasing, decreasing, increasing, decreasing. Relative to Chandra, nakṣatras have no decreasing. So nakṣatrasya nakṣatratvam, he says, Chandra changes, but nakṣatras don't change. That is why they got the name nakṣatra. And the combination of this, one which is fixed, one which is changing, indicates karmanya. Indicates, gives a signal. How interesting it is, if everything is fixed, you don't get anything, But if something is changing, you get any information. Something is happening, something is changing kind of thing. That is the starting of astrology actually. But how does he introduce that? That is the story. He says, Daksha Prajapati had 27 or 28. Some people say 28. Kechit vadanti, he says. Kechana vadanti ashtavamshatihi iti. That means, originally they had counted 28 unequal nakṣatras or whatever. In some time you keep it. What the time also we can determine. And then, when this was happening, I think they understood this Purna Tithi and this Sannaya, and all these things were done. That is a intellectual development, or some particular group of people who did all of this. They tried to combine the cosmic Saptadasha Kalam Nirvapayati, and then the Sannaya and bringing up, and then the Darsha. Should there be 27 or 28 would have been the question they would have got. And the question was, what are nakṣatras? What is the meaning behind Chandra and nakṣatra? If Chandra is some kind of a kala, if grahas are kala, and their previous people, the rishis, maybe for 1,000 years, they had already done all of this, Ketu, Ashtottara Shatam Sankhyaayate, and all of that. In today's Veda, we don't have Ashtottara Shata Graha. But in the practice, in the Yajnika thing, we have more than 25 grahas. That is the cups. And if we accept these cups represent some other thing, it could have been large also. And new concepts have come up, so you have to be careful with this. But astronomically, the story is that had 27, some say 28 daughters. He offered them to Soma to follow dharma. You see how the civilian or the civic sense gets combined with this. Don't ask, were not people getting married before all these things? It is not like that. Maybe they would have thought of a theory and brought out a theory for this. He offered them to Soma to follow dharma. That is very clear, because dharma has to be followed only with a wife. Otherwise, that cannot be followed, was the original Vedika concept. Soma agreed. Who is Soma? Don't question right now. Some Soma. Because the Soma, Soma Rohiṇī, and Soma, the Rohiṇī is Soma Patni, there is a mantra also of that kind. You have to be a little bit careful. Just listen to me on that. Soma agreed, but he stayed only with Rohiṇī. That is, the Sanskrit text is there, you can read for yourself. The other daughters, the other 27 or 26, I don't know, they complained. They went to whom? They went to Prajapati. Prajapati is also Soma. Anyway, so they went to Prajapati, their father, and complained that, he is not staying at all. He is not treating us equally. It is not staying, he says. If you read the Sanskrit thing, it becomes clear. Anyway, I cannot perhaps do that. Something here, Rohiṇī abruvat, and then the sisters say, Bhaginyaha, abhicharam ma vartasva. They tell Rohiṇī, don't do, abhichara is not anything special. Against the accepted civil notion or the manner, don't do like that. He should be going equally. He should treat everyone equally. That's what he says. Then once again they go and complain. And again calls Soma. And Prajapati says, see, you are not behaving properly, you are not moving with them equally. I hear that. He says, no, I am moving with them properly. I am treating all of them equally. That word equally is the key. He doesn't say exactly equally. And later on the word comes samam vartasva. In the mantra itself is there in the Vedic Brahmanas. He was moving, no problem, but he was not equally moving. You follow the nuance of that, And then Prajapati says, you will have Yakshma, you will have Raja Yakshma. He curses him. Suddenly, Chandra, till that time it was Soma, the drama was with Soma. Suddenly Chandra answers, don't do that, I am going to be equally with them, because how? Rikṣāni nakṣatram bhavati iti avagachan. He understood that the rikshas become nakṣatra henceforth. So Rohiṇī became not single, one patni, one star, became 5 stars. So it became a nakṣatra. She became a nakṣatra. So all the rikshas became nakṣatras. I hope you get the idea. And that is the most important statement. He understood rikṣāni nakṣatram bhavati. Rikṣāni is in plural. Nakṣatram is ekavachana. Don't worry about the grammar, because the transformation has to happen. That is what happened. So how many rikshas are there, stars are there? 86. Vedāṅga lists them. And that I have given in the appendix also. Ekatare, dvitare, षट्tare, and all of that. Each nakṣatra. And once this happened, it's an equal movement. That means the nakṣatra division was equal. I hope you get the feeling now. So the division of the nakṣatras into equal sectors is what he means. So now Chandra will be there in each of the nakṣatra. Now what is the advantage? Then what are the devatā? Devatā prayojanam kim? This is the next question. Now, that again is very beautifully said. So, you see, this is what is in page 60. Stars become nakṣatra. So, don't treat them as same paryayapada. They are not. And I have given the table yesterday of the Atharvaveda Parisheshta Rohiṇī being single, whereas in all other texts it becomes 5. So, there is a transition time. That time you can take it as 1800 BC. Because there is the Magadha period. So there already the sectors were divided equally, 1/4, 3/4 and all that. So this should have happened roughly in the same period, maybe 100 years before or 100 years later.
A follow-up question on this one, where they describe Darsa and Purnamas of the moon. Now, for the inner planets as well, there is a gibbous state.
For
the inner planets. The gibbous state is there for the inner planets as well. Is there any mention of the gibbous states, the same kind of a moon's phase changing?
Phase changes.
Phase changes. The same way for the inner planets, that is...
No, I followed your question. The phase change is not mentioned here in the Mahāsalila.
Okay.
But in some of the Puranas, there are some descriptions which most probably refers to phase change.
Okay.
Can't discuss it today. That has to be, some research is needed on that. That is what I say, Puranic astronomy, nobody has studied, including the Meru-centric astronomy, and there is also the Graha descriptions. And what they do is describe the sky, because the concept is, as it is here, so it is there. That means what is not here is nowhere else, is the Vedantic thing. But that started from this. Yesterday I mentioned about Deva Grahava, nakṣatrāni, and a few other things, So the stars, the planets, and some of that are like some king here and his subordinates and his citizens who are all there. And the citizens are all getting some strength from the king. In the north, in the south, you understand what I mean?
I understood.
So it's a kind of a rashtra, not only in the ground, but rashtra also on the top. That is why the Swarat, Virat and those things come up, Samrat. It is both in the, here also you can have emperors, there also you can have an emperor kind of thing. So Dhruva was the Chakravarti, so Dhruva was moved. I didn't go through that because Dhruva was removed from the Chakravarti ship. I have given it in my notes. In the Maitrayani Samhita it comes, through an abhichara, a king can be removed from his place. Because Dhruva himself was removed, he was the Chakravarti. And that abhichara is turning that Dhruva Graha, which I mentioned, the Dhruva Graha just a few minutes back. That Dhruva Graha in the north, the priest has to turn it, assuming in the opposite way that let this person, whomever he is thinking, let him be paryachikirshan, let him be removed. He becomes chavate. He is the achyuta, he becomes chavayate. He is shifted. So they did these kinds of things to remove people from power. Okay. And these phases and these things, in the sky, in the Puranas, they get their power from sun. The Sushumna ray, then the Arvavasu, Paravasu, Vibhavasu, there's the name of the rays in the south, southwest. They get some power out of it. It's a very complex kind of thing. That means from there the earth came, and in the earth they made all the kingdoms, these human beings and all that. They tried to put this theory onto the sky to understand that, So we will go further. Okay, this is, I hope you have understood this, but this doesn't explain totally the legend. Now, why was that Rohiṇī so important? Now, in the Puranas, if you see, the Shapa is given and becomes simply Krishna Paksha. He keeps on decreasing. Even in the Vedāṅga Jyotiṣa and the later things, simply says Raja so Tithi is decreasing of the shine is what it is said. Maybe the counting of the Tithi started from that time. That's what it means. What time? When Rohiṇī was removed as a single star to become a 5 stars. Why did they do that? Now, if you see the equal division and the dating that we have given, that is the 3/4, 1/4 Vishaka and Magadhyam and Śraviṣṭhā, approximately it would have happened at that time. But before that, what happened? Before that, Rohiṇī would have been the most important star. Single, all right, but most important. What for? Samvatsara Prajapati. This I have been telling. And Rohiṇī is the Prajapati Patni, because Prajapati stayed with Rohiṇī. Right? That is the legend. They later on said Chandra stayed with Rohiṇī because it is for cinematic purposes. You can do all of that. That he escaped, he went away with that, and there are temples also. That's in Tamil Nadu. There's some kovil is there, I have forgotten, Tingalur or somewhere, where Rohiṇī, there is another Vigraha which is kept as the wife of Chandra and all that. Fine, perfectly fine. Culture develops like that. Art develops like that. I have no objection. But the cosmic thing is here. And what was that? That I have quoted, but it takes too much time. That comes up in the Katha Samhita. It's again a Yajurvedic thing. What is Prajapati Rupa, he asks. And Prajapati Rupa is when Rohiṇī rises in the Vasanta Rutu. When people are all happy and all that, Rohiṇī is something wonderful because people would be happy when Rohiṇī rises. So beautiful, and he explains how radiant was Rohiṇī and all that. And if you identify that Prajapati is Samvatsara, that is the year beginning. And Samvatsara Patni is going to be Rohiṇī at that time. Now this word Samvatsara Patni comes in other places also. Purva Palguni, Samvatsara se Pratama Ratri, Samvatsara Patni, the word comes there, So that concept was there. That is a Mithuna. That is something which is a dyad. You want an informal kind of word. It's a duel or a duet or a dyad. There are the two things which always go together. And if Samvatsara Prajapati and Prajapati stayed with Rohiṇī, if you have to read that mantra, then you will get the full meaning. And at that time, the new Vodana is given, food is given to the children. Even today in the Rohiṇī nakṣatra, you do Annaprasana. Annaprasana, the best nakṣatra, astrologers may be knowing, it is the Rohiṇī. Because the Rohiṇī is something which rises. And that is the Prajapateha Rupam. Like yesterday I showed one Nakshatriya Prajapati Rupam. This is the Rohiṇī Samvatsara Prajapati Rupam. So in the Vasanta Rutu, when Rohiṇī rises, it is not an exact situation of equinox. Because equinox is in the center of Vasanta Rutu. So Rohiṇī is an equinox around 3000 BC. As a star, as a nakṣatra, it would be precisely in 0. But they don't mention that. Because the concept of 0, concept of longitude, equinox, they were not there. In the Vasanta Rutu, it rises, maybe plus or minus week or whatever, And continuously, that is what was taken as the year beginning. But due to precision, it changed. They could not put Rohiṇī in that Rutu. Very clearly, Rohiṇī was not there. That means Prajapati had left her, but Chandra was there. So they wanted a new way of doing it. It's an intellectual development combined with observation and what I can say, an esoteric thinking, extraordinary kind of thinking. And they made it into equal. And at that time, equinox, Vasanta Rutu was not in Rohiṇī at all. It had moved to Kritika. Kritika 1/4 and Vishaka 3/4 are the equinoctial points. So when sun was in Kritika, 1/4 was the Vasanta Ritu. That is the spring equinox. 1800 BC. This was before that. I hope you get the point. And this, if you see, all things become simple. And from then onwards, he started moving equally. Now the next question comes, how did astrology start from there? And that is very interesting. And this partiality is now removed from Rohiṇī. Okay? That much you understand. And Rohiṇī is important. It is not simply the Puranic story that in Krishna Paksha is the Rajakshma. No. It is, Rohiṇī is the key figure there. And of course, some people would say Jyeshṭha is opposite Rohiṇī. That's also important. Could have happened. I don't deny that. And that was the time when Abhijit was also removed. Because you want to make things equal, you don't need Abhijit, because the distance between Uttarashada and Shravana, where Abhijit comes, very small. They said, when you make it equal, why do you need it? And that equality was there in the sky, as well as for me in the rising days, 13 5/9 days. You don't forget that. So 13 5/9 days, the equal space is there. So it is the Kala Kshetriyoh Samyam, that is the principle which continues throughout. Now, the astrology legend, it is on page 64 onwards. Daksha and all the Soma agrees. Okay. Yeah. It is MS 91, it comes up. Daksha asked Soma to behave in the same way, samam vartitavyam, with the 27 nakṣatras, so that the activities such as fierce, quick, fixed, well, if you read in Sanskrit, it makes better sense. So you can do that. The actions have to be this is the mantra, in the Katha Samhita. Yad odanam prashnati etadeva sarvam avarudya tadasmin ekada dadati rohiņyam. So you say ekavachana rohiņyam. So in the Vedas, Magha is always plural, Śraviṣṭhā is always plural, Rohiṇī is always ekavachana, and Vishakha is always dvivachana. Kritika sometimes as a group, ekavachana, sometimes kritika also in bahuvachana. Please remember this. This mantra, this says, Rohiṇī tasmad yad udyati surye kriyata etadvai prajapatehe rupam yarkhesha udeti sarvaya vayeta prajaha pratinandanti. This is the Vasanta Ritu. That is how they know the Vasanta Ritu. Didrikshanyoha darshaniyo bhavati. So this whole thing is the one which represents the Prajapati staying with Rohiṇī. And that is when the Vodana, that is the Annaprashna had to be done. The first Annaprashna was being done. Now the next, this I think, in your book you can see the 91. What he says is, he wants Prajapati to move with everyone equally. He also does. And for the equal movement, what is the phala? He says you are going to indicate the actions to be done. What are the actions? He divides the actions into 6. Fierce actions, quick action, fixed, harsh, soft, moving and ordinary. The activities themselves, karma, of the human beings is divided into 6 things. Remember the karma gunanga which I yesterday mentioned. So the nakṣatra karma, but the karma itself was 6 kinds. And further, depending on the devatā, you can have more number of divisions. That is why it's a long table. For each nakṣatra, there may be some 10 kinds of activities. So 27 into 10, some 270 kind of activities. Of course, all our activities can be brought under something like 270 or something. It is like the profession. How many professions are there? Kind of thing, And again, the birth in that nakṣatra. How many properties can be there for a person? He can be a strong man, he can be a tall man, he can be a beautiful person, he can be a king, he may be a scholar, kind of thing. These properties are also coming up. And this is what Prajapati asks. You indicate, being with the nakṣatras, what kind of karma should be done. And Chandra asks, is a beautiful statement. Soma agrees. So sometimes it is Chandra, sometimes it is Soma which is used. It is a mono-acting. The same person is a Prajapati, he is already Chandra, not the nakṣatra. He is also Soma, and he is time. Don't forget that. Soma agrees but wonders, your daughters are all, by their attitude, they says, Didrikshanya, they are all beautiful looking. By their attitude, equally disposed. And he uses a special word there, 91, Dakshinyaha, Tulya Dakshinyaha. That word, Dakshinya, I hope you remember, even in our language, you say, Dakshinya Madkobedi, Dakshinyam Panavanda, Sankoch Padavanda. You say that, That Dakshinya is a very beautiful word, nuance. In English, it is attitude, you can say. They are of equal attitude. And I am Saumya, and I am also very calm. And they are also of equal attitude. Not that, somebody is stronger or somebody is weaker or things like that. What should I do? How do I do that? And then he says, true, you are neutral, but the activities to be indicated are very special. Tikshna, Ugra, Rudra, that kind of thing. And he says, from the devatā prayojana, that can be decided. He gives two examples. With whichever nakṣatra, whichever devatā property is there, that devatā property applies for the activities. He gives two examples. Pura somo kritikayam agni rupena avasat. Or something equivalent to that, he says. That means in the kritika, once upon a time, I hope you understand, all fiery things siddhāntic. Now, what are the fiery things? He doesn't say. You have to go to VJJ nakṣatra karma guna. I said, a smiti is agni karma, kanyopanayana is agni karma, then, eating chilies is agni karma, burning a forest is agni karma, jealousy is agni karma. Because jealousy, you say that, burning the passion and all that. These are all the agnis. There may be 10 kinds of agni properties. They all refer to, good or bad, to the kritika nakṣatra. Similarly, for the Rohiṇī, what is it? After kritika is Rohiṇī. Here you can see that it is the kritikādi system already. First he gives the example of kritika, next goes to Rohiṇī. So Rohiṇī, all sthira karmani siddhyanti. Kutaha, pura, somaha, stitva. Sthira rupena stitaha. So he stayed for a very long time back with Rohiṇī as Prajapati. And now you have to equate samvatsara of Prajapati. So samvatsara rupena stitaha. Kaha, somaha. Somaha, kala eva somaha. Kala eva samvatsarha. But kala is the kalayaha bhavaha kalaha you have to take a vriddhi and the kala. It is a discrete time, not the akala. That akala is before aditya. Don't forget that. So that is the paravidya. So don't go into that. It is the aparavidya. We are dealing only with samvatsara, ayana, ritu, yuga. They are all only the kalas. So all the sthira karmani siddhyanti. What are the sthira karma? You want to build a house, you want to get married, you want to do an office, or you want to take up a job. They are all the sthira karmas. So do it in the Rohiṇī nakṣatra. You want to eat food because the child, you do the annaprashna, then will be sthira. This is the example given. Two examples only are given. The others are not here, but they carried it. In the nakṣatra karma guna chapter, all that are given. So the devata property or the daivatya is this. I hope you get it. It's a little bit complex, but you have to understand. Yes, sir.
The Navagraha Sukta for the Navagrahas, there is a concept of Adidevata and Pratyadidevata.
That is in the nakṣatreshti you are telling.
No, in the Navagraha Suktam also it comes.
No. Which sukta?
Navagraha Sukta.
Navagraha sukta is not, okay. It is not a sukta. You are talking about a Navagraha homa from the Parishishta. Ashvalayana Parishishta and other things. Your question is very valid, very interesting. There is a Graheshti Brahmana only with the Kata Sampradaya. All other shakas, they don't have a Graheshti Brahmana, a Graheshti thing. But the Navagraha Sukta is not the correct name. What it is, you have for Shukra, for example, what was the mantra for Avahana?
So for Shukra, it goes first. Pravashukraya Bhanave Bharadagam Havyam Matim Chakniye Subhutam Yodevyani Manusha Janogush Antarvishwani Vidmana Jigati Indranim. So Indrani is the associate.
Indrani is the Pratyadi Devata.
Adidevata.
Adidevata.
Indrani
No, that is not a sukta what you are telling. The sukta, for example, Ketu is Ketum Vishwanna Ketave, which is in the Rig Veda. All the mantras are only from the Rig Veda you have to take. It is not a sukta. There is nothing like a graha sukta. So there is a graha homa practice is there, I don't deny. That is given in the Ashvalayana and other Śraviṣṭhā Sutra Parishishtas, it is there. Nothing wrong in that. But your question...
There is a concept of Adidevata and Pratyadidevata.
I know what you are telling. There's all later concepts which have come. You want to analyze that, it cannot be done in 1 minute or 1 hour. It takes about 1 year at least. You have to go to the Devata of the Rigveda Mandala first. Why worry about a small sukta? Sauchikagni, who is the Devata? Well, in the 1.94, 45 I was telling about Vishnu, there are 3 Devatas for different mantras there. Within the same sukta, in the same hymn, there are different chandas and different suktas. Different devatas. What is the concept of that devata? Because Anukramani has given something, I take it as devata. We have to be careful with this. And then the Rishi comes up there. Is that Rishi same as this Rishi? Get into complication. Unless that is sorted out, these cannot be fully understood. But what can be understood, what has remained standard, is the nakṣatreshti and Agnirnah Patu Kritika and Agnir Devata, that is Kritika Devata, Agni is the Devata and all that. Yesterday I showed those slides with some differences. For Shatabhishek, sometimes Varuna is the Devata and some Indra is the Devata. So that Devata is standard. Who are those Devatas is another question. And here what he says is, Soma joined with this nakṣatra long time back with one activity. That activity is the property of that devata. And that is only a name. In other words, it is all Soma. When Soma is in Kritika, it's called Agni. But what, sir, today also I call Agni. Agni Devata is Kritika today I am using. Here it is not that. Much long before this equal division, before the Rohiṇī legend came and Soma agreed that he will not stay only with Rohiṇī, he treat all the other 27 wives equally, then this concept of Devata came. But that Devata action was more ancient. So when did Agni happen in Kritika? Not in 1800 BC, maybe 3000 BC or 4000 BC. Now when did Prajapati stay in Rohiṇī Sthira? Because he is Prajapati Daivatyam. The Devata is Prajapati, even in the nakṣatreshti. It would be maybe 2000 BC or 3000 BC, not 1800 BC. Because it is in 1800 BC, Nakṣāni nakṣatram bhavati, samavartasva, astu, he agreed. Then the devatā properties, all he preached to him. He got that upadesha, that he will indicate the karmas, ugra, tikshna, and all these things. There more divisions come up. That is, further analysis, it happens.
Understood. Thank you.
You are in Bangalore only, right?
Yes.
Yeah, sometime we can sit and talk about it.
Sure.
In detail. Oh, I think maybe it's lunchtime. I will take another 5 minutes and complete it. So, the concept of astrology has come from here. And very interesting things happens. He agrees that is Soma or Chandra. So, Chandra is a proxy for Soma. Everything is time only. Only thing is, time is moving. Soma is moving, fast moving. What is sthira? It is the nakṣatras. And nakṣatras are Soma patnayaha, Chandra patnayaha, so to say. And he brings it out very clearly. And they are the ones, that is the Agni and Soma concept. They are all the Agnis. They are the Strilinga. That is what he says. Nakṣatras are all Striyaha eva. Linga may be different. Pushya iti pullingaha. That is for loka vyavahara, vyakarana. But Pushya is also a Stri as a property. And in the Pushya, what happened is another thing. Some devatā is there and all that. Actually, it is not Pushya, it becomes Tishya. In the more ancient time, it comes like that. And this continues. And you can see the nakṣatra karma guna, which we have given a long table of the activities. If you are interested, you can see that. So this devatā property is there. Then the further difficulties are there. This is an equilibrium. Moon is moving equally with all of them. There are 6 kinds of karma, and each thing is in stable equilibrium with only 6 states. If you want a modern physical kind of representation, the whole cosmos, as far as human beings are concerned, they are in only 6 states. Ugra, Tikshna, Karma. Because moon comes to this nakṣatra, then he goes equal to the other one. And the activity that you want to do is indicated by the devatā. Now new concepts come up. What happened to the Graha? He gets into that. Now, anya grahaihi uparajyate, he says, if there is upasarga of others, then the Soma property, the Kala property, or the most ancient devatā property, which was infused there, that gets disturbed. So in the Kritika, it is the Agni property you are telling, I wanted to eat chilies, but I got some bad thing. What happened on that? Because there was something else they are affecting. It is not the equilibrium property. It is an anomaly. That anomaly, how it happens, first he says, anyai grahaihi. The concept is, there is an equilibrium in a family because it is the Agni and Soma which is there. If others interfere, obviously there is going to be problem, right? It's the same thing which is there. How they got it is a different matter. If Surya comes in there, Surya absorbs the properties, that whatever was the property of that, it gets changed. Similarly with the Graha. And if he asks, if the 5 grahas are there, actually Ketu and also that you have to add, Chandra is not there. Chandra is anyway there, always is there. He gives the gradation. The strongest is going to be Ketu. He affects the maximum. Next is Rahu, next is Shukra, next depending on the number of rays, in that same order he gives. It is later on there. And once you go into this, your equilibrium has got disturbed so much, because there can be so many mixing of these things can happen. And all this was the mundane astrology, or what you call astrology for day-to-day affairs. And what was the effect of that? He gives, it is going to be seen in terms of the pravarshana, ativrishti, anavrishti, bhukampa, parivesha, and janamara, the epidemics, and these are the kind of things. So it is not the individual thing he comes there. It is the general for the whole community what was happening. And the Janamara Shanti is one of the chapters. That is later on, it can be appeasement also can be done. Because the question comes up, we know all of this Jyotiṣa. Some Papa Graha is sitting somewhere, he will say, do this Shanti, everything will be over. So I go to Navagraha place, Kumbhakonam, do something, I get everything out of it. That concept is there from the beginning. He also gives that, how it has to be done. Both Parashara, in Parashara Tantra it is there. Vriddhagarga also gives something which I have not edited. And he goes next into the nakṣatra and karma. Janma, karma, nakṣatra. There is one statement there. That is a natal astrology. That means in the Janma nakṣatra something is happening. That property is also there. From there also you can decide about the individual person. This is a very deep concept. It is all astronomical which goes there. You have to read Parashara Tantra. To some extent I have discussed. But this nakṣatra, Nadi astrology as it is, or Nadi nakṣatra is what he says, not investigated, because people take it as some forecasting method and all of that. I will not go into that. But the starting of that is here. I hope you are getting some idea of what I am telling, right? And Janma, Karma, Nakshatra, what does it mean? It is not horoscope. It is the nakshatra in which the person is born. That is when moon is there in that. So the word nakshatra is used in a dual sense. Nakshatra is the group of stars there. It is a sector in that. Or where Chandra is there, that can also be called a nakshatra, nothing wrong in that. And nakshatra is also a kala, because Chandra stays only for certain time in that. That is also a kala, nakshatra kala. Keep this in mind. And the Janma nakshatra, the 5th is called the Karma nakshatra, the 11th is called the some other nakshatra, Manasa nakshatra, and kind of thing. There are 5 nakshatras which they indicate as the important nakshatras. And what happens in those nakshatras with the Graha and other things? Because the properties already he has enunciated. With the Grahas attack them, then something else may happen. All that affects the natal person also. Not only the Rashtra and all of that. So you see a self-similarity. This is what I meant as the principle of Rupa Samriddhi, similarity, and something which happens on its own. You get an idea? If you think everything has to be worked out by somebody and put, it is not that. It is growing. It is in the soil it has grown on its own. It is not planted by somebody and that. The concepts are all here. So from the Rig Veda onwards, if you see these things carefully, you get all these concepts there, and that is how this astrology has developed. It is not horoscopic, it is nakshatra astrology. But how much is practiced, I have no idea. So if somebody is interested in history of astrology, not just history of astronomy, this is the text. This work has not been done. So I am suggesting this. Somebody should take it up. People simply put a board as Vedic astrology, Vedic tea, Vedic coffee, and all of that. It is a shame, actually, Vedic astrology is not what is printed on the computers. The computer thing you get, that is not Vedic astrology. There may be some elements of that, but this is the one. Well, one last thing is there. I think I will complete with that. I have taken 5 minutes more. That you have to go to the last 108 section. That is on page 140, I think. Yeah, 140. Sarvesham nakshatranam karmasu kritikaha. 102 paragraph. Prathamam achakshate. Śraviṣṭhā tu sankheya purva lagnanam. Anuradha paschima nignanam. Rohiṇī sarva nakshatranam. So even at that time, Rohiṇī was the Adi for all the nakshatras. That is, at this time, the 1800 BC or whatever, when the nakṣatra, the Tara, Riksha became nakṣatra, Rohiṇī was also considered 5, but for consideration of purposes, theoretical purposes, the first one, it is like telling, for karma only Kritika is first, for activities, but for respect, for worship, still Rohiṇī is first. Count from Rohiṇī. Might have slipped because it's not in the equinox. The equinox I decide by Kritika only. Kritika has come to the equinoctial point in the Vasanta Ritu. So Masana Margashirshaham Rutunam Kusuma Karha. Okay, Vasanta Ritu is the first one. But what is the nakṣatra, first nakṣatra? Still Rohiṇī is worshipful. But Kritika is what I see. So I start the activity with Kritika. That is the important thing here. So this remembers even some ancient things. So not all of it which is there belongs to that 1800 or 1600 BC. 50% may be more ancient, going to the Rigvedic period or Dhruva period actually. Because I had no time for that, because the measurement of Dhruva and other things are given. How you measure, which planet is where, from the Dhruva you have to, at which yojana it is there, it is given. One last thing, when it comes to sun and moon, who is above? The sun above or moon above? ಏನಮ್ಮ ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಾ ನೀವು? Now, okay, I understand this problem because in the Puranas it is said moon is above sun, and in some of the Tantras it is said it is going to be the Chandranadi and all of that, and Bindu, Kala, and Soma, Rasa comes from there, and there is a conflation of Soma with Chandra, that is the Chandra Bimba. And in some, and again in Saundari Lahari and other places also it happens. In the Krishna Paksha and Shukla Paksha you do the dhyana, similar to Chandra, the Soma changes. So it is a kind of a conflated concept is there. And many times people think Chandra is above Surya. But here it is not like that. The Uttara is actually north. And even in the Brahmanda Purana it is very clear. The high and low is visible high and low. Not your flat thing and measurement vertical like this. The modern tall, short, it is not that. So when you see a celestial body, yesterday Sundar showed some animations. In the winter solstice, sun rises lowest, moon rises highest. So Brahmanda Purana is very clear, Dakshinayana Samste. That is, when Dakshinayana is happening, Surya will be lower, Chandra is higher. That higher is with reference to north, with reference to Meru. Dhruva is the highest. Doesn't mean I can see Dhruva here. Even today when you talk of pole star, you don't look at your head, you look to the north. In the same way you have to do it, because the origin originally was Dhruva. So the 0 point, if you want, think of that, it was Dhruva. Today it is east somehow we are taking, and with reference to this, nothing wrong, that is Prak. How did the directions arise? This says, with reference to sun, how it arises, and how there are 4 dvipas. When sun rises in one dvipa, in the Paschima dvipa it is already evening, in the Jambu dvipa it is afternoon, whereas in the Uttar Kuru it is midnight. Whereas in the Prag Jyotiṣa, sun is rising, because there are 4 dvipas. So this Prithvi concept, not the Bhumi concept. Slowly it changes, the obliquity is also mentioned here. And much later, when they understood, when the Dhruva had moved, that this is spherical. And this was taken further, and the siddhāntic astronomers brought in the Lanka. So the south, here it is Jambudvipa is the south one, where the Madhyana happens. Later on it became the Yavakoti, the Udaya happens. In Lanka it is afternoon. And in Romaka it is evening. And in Kushadvipa or something it is going to be midnight. It's the fourth thing. It is the quadrant, 90-degree quadrant of the globe. It's the starting point is here. Okay? Good. Let me stop with this. Adjourn for lunch. Yes. Please ask questions. There is no problem.
The 4 coordinates. These 4 coordinates, when did it come? When was it, identified and mentioned that the 4 coordinates you told, no?
Oh, 4 quadrants and coordinates.
Yeah, 4 quadrants. That is Romaka,
No,
then Lanka.
no, that is in the siddhāntic period. Romaka name comes up in, as far as I remember, Brihat Samhita mentions, and the other names slightly different are there. But in the Puranas, there are different names are there, because the Meru-centric astronomy, the same principle is there, but it gives us Brahmanda Purana. There are names like Vaivasvatapuri, Yamapuri, some 4 names are there. Alakapuri in the north, they are the names of the cities which are mentioned. When there are 4 dvipas. Brahmanda Purana gives it. If you want, you can search and see that.
Okay, thank you.
So the 4 division is already there in the Purana here and all of that. Somewhere around 1800 BC, I can say that. Later on, new things have come up. The Puranas also have 7 dvipas. Some have 14 dvipas. So the geographical thing has changed slowly.
See, today morning you said something about Rakshasas tried to change the earth or something.
Something?
Something about Rakshasas, they were trying to change the earth or something that you said.
Yeah, that is true.
What is that, sir? Can you?
Yeah. In my lecture notes which are given, you turn to page 25 and 26, if you are interested. 25 and 26. That is the Dhruva Graha. 25 and 26. This is the page. So the Dhruva Graha, if you see, next page, the mantra is given. Ayurva etad yajnasya yad dhruvaha uttamo grahanam grhyate. The footnotes is the mantra. Here it is the translation which is given.
Okay. Can this be looked at as the pole change, magnetic north pole, south pole change?
That I don't know. What it says is, the translation I given, the Asuras from north attempted to turn the earth around.
Yeah.
The gods firmed it up with Dhruva.
Okay.
That is how Dhruva gets his name. For Dhruva is placed in the north for fixity. So Dhruva was originally fixed. Sometimes some changes happened. That is the meaning of this. And this comes up in this, what I mentioned was, for IKS researchers, this comes in the 6th Kanda of the Yajurveda. Whereas the original actual Samhita part is in the 1st part. So unless you combine the 2, why Dhruva Graha is kept in the north? What is Dhruva Graha? Is it simply a drinking cup meant only for drinking something? It's simply called Dhruva? It is not. It is a representative of a celestial object or some celestial phenomenon on the ground. This is what I call a simulation. And the next one, that Paryachikirtan, Maitrayani Samhita, there is also a Abhichara. That is what I given next to that. I given the translation of that. The text is available. There is no problem with that. If somebody is interested, that can be given. So after all these things, the priest himself tries to turn it, because the Chakravarti in the sky, he was displaced for whatever reason. I can do that in the ground also by doing the same thing. That is the meaning. And Rajaputro vai Viryavattarah bhavati, he says, and you would see how the social things develop. Now, today, of course, for some of the things, there will be securities, maybe for the election box that is being carried and all that. Very high security. There is very high security for the Dhruva Graha. He mentions that. Because Rajaputra has to stand in front of that shed. If you have seen some of the yajnas which are done, maybe today even in the TV you can see some of them, there are some thatched sheds which are there in the north, in the south, in the west and all of that. So in that Dhruva Graha which is kept alone, the Rajakumara has to stand with his sword there, because nobody should disturb it. Otherwise the Chakravarti gets disturbed, The king gets disturbed. But if the Abhichara is done, he has to go and disturb it. That is the information which is given. This is a social custom. I think even in other cultures they might have practiced. I don't know. I have no comparison with Chinese, because their culture was also pretty old, Others who had seen the pole star, how did they consider pole star? The Egyptians, it is said that they have the pole star, and the pyramids are aligned with the Dhruva of those days, that is Tuba. There are articles in Royal Society journals by physicists and astronomers on the orientation of the pyramids. And is it really that? Because you have to estimate the era. How do you do that? When pyramids were built, 3rd millennium, 4th millennium, 2nd millennium. So they have tried all of these things. Like, I am trying for the Dhruva, when it might have happened.
Also, I think I had one scene. They have also mentioned the shift of position. The pyramids, they have become so that pyramid ಗೆ ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿ Dhruva ಇದೆ.
Oh, I see. Okay. I haven't come across that. Okay. All right. I think we should. Nobody is hungry. So much of Soma you have taken.